Good day, everyone. Thank you for joining me. This is Kay, the blue collar worker, back at it with a new blog. Today, I want to talk about real estate. So, you want to be a landlord? Let's talk about it. But before we get started, press like if you like my video, subscribe if you want to. Okay, let's get started. So, you want to be a landlord? Let's talk about it. First thing you need to do is find a location. What location do you want to put your rental property in? Do you want it by public transportation, which is generally what I do because sometimes the tenants that I had didn't have a car, so it was pretty convenient to have some form of transportation, whether it was a train nearby or a bus stop. But if you want it on a quiet street, that's okay too. So that's the first thing you do is decide, do you want transportation nearby? The second thing you want to do is to figure out what type of rental property do you want? Do you want a frame or do you want a brick? Generally, frame is cheaper, but frame tends to have more problems. You can possibly have termite issues, water, wood rot issues, uh, animals boring into the property through the wood to get into your place. And I've had that problem. So what I learned was I would just spend a little bit more and get brick. Brick is the gold standard. If you get brick, yeah, rats can eat through brick too. But generally, it's a lot better. You don't have to worry about squirrels and all that eating through the wood to get into the attic. So my personal preference would be I would go with brick. The next thing you want to do, and I'm going to be reading off my little list too. So if you see me looking down, that's what I'm doing. So the next thing you want to do is decide how much do you want to spend. Now, do you want to rehab it yourself? I know we look at all these rehab shows and we see the places shot, and the guys go in and they fix it up to make it look like $1 million. But these are professionals. These are people that know what they're doing. Do you want to buy a rental property that nothing's working? I don't think so. You probably want to get something that's already up and running. And if someone's living there and they finna move out, this way you know that the furnace should be working, the hot water tank should be working, the mechanics for the most part should be working. If you buy a house that's been sitting and it's been abandoned and this and that, you don't know what's going on with that property, and you're gonna spend some money figuring it out. And who knows, the pipes could be shot. You got to put back a furnace or a couple of furnaces, a boiler, a hot water tank, duct work, whatever, copper piping, copper wiring. The list goes on and on. So me personally, I'd rather have something that's already up and running. So this way I know that most of the stuff should be working, and I probably have to update it and at the very least just paint it. So once you get past that, again, you got to figure out how much money do you want to spend. Now you got some very expensive areas, and then you got some not so expensive areas. You got to decide, what's your tolerance? Do you want to move in have your property in a bad neighborhood? And I always say this: never get something that you wouldn't live in, because it might come a time you might have to live in it. Or you might have to stay over there a couple of nights out of the week just to keep an eye on your property, especially if it's in a really bad neighborhood. So, that's something to take under consideration too. Uh, the location and how much do you want to spend, because, it matters. Now, if you get something in an expensive area, look at what you can afford, because it's going to be times in your rental property. I'm not saying all the time that you won't have a tenant, or you may not have a tenant that's paying. And then you got to ask yourself, can you handle that mortgage if you're getting a mortgage on it? The next thing you want to do is once you figured all that out, you went out, you looked at some properties, and you saw one that you like. The next thing you would do is you would do what's called a contract. And you would tell a real estate man or lady you would like to do a contract. Now, if there isn't any contracts on it, then you put in a contract and then you put down whatever they say the owner might require you to put down on their property. And basically, all you're doing is securing it while you are getting your money in order. And it's good to already have a pre-approved letter from the bank stating how much money they'll lend you, so it'll make the process go a lot quicker because it's going to take time. You know, you're going to have to do a lot. You're going to have to jump through a lot of hoops before they hand you them keys, unless you pay cash. Cash is always king, and it goes a lot quicker if you got cash. So let's for now say you don't have cash, right? Okay, so you do your contract and then you give the real estate lady man your pre-approved letter. And then from there, you know, you go get your attorney if you don't already have one. You get a real estate attorney. It's very important. Get a real estate attorney, not someone that do criminal or someone that does whatever. You want someone that specializes in real estate because that's what you're going to need. So you get someone that does real estate. So once you get your real estate person on board, the next thing you want to do is get you a contractor. You want your contractor to come out, because I think they give you like a week or 2 weeks or whatever to bring your guy out to look at it. So what your contractor be looking at is how much money it's going to cost you to get that place back in order. Now, the big ticket items that your contractor yourself should be looking for is the roof, because a roof can be anywhere from probably $8,000 on up, depending on what you get. If you get a single family, it could probably cost you anywhere from 8 to maybe 10,000. You get your two flat, it can probably cost a lot more. So you want to figure out, um, what shape the roof is in, what shape are the windows in? Because a lot of people pass on the windows. They don't even look at the windows. But if you got rotted out windows, you're going to be letting in a lot of air. You're going to be losing a lot of heat. They won't work properly. So you want to know what shape are those windows in, because it's very important. If you got newer windows, that's good. But if you don't, if you get a contractor out that does windows, he's going to try to jack you up and charge you an arm and a leg for the windows. I was able to put my own windows in on my rental properties, and it saved me a lot of money. The next thing you want to check is the furnace. You want to make sure that furnace is working, because if the furnace isn't working, now that's going to cost you. It could cost you probably about 5,000 on up, depending on what you get. And then you want to make sure that the hot water tank works. And now that's not as expensive, but it'd be nice if it worked. You want to make sure that the electrical is in order because, to have an electrician come out, that could be very expensive too, as well as the plumbing. So you want to make sure that those are in order. And then if you're going to gut it out or just, patch the drywall and repaint it, basically that's what I did. I just patched the drywalls, repainted it because it was a lot cheaper to do it that way opposed to having all the drywall taken out like how you see on these shows where they just go in and go to town tearing everything up, taking everything out. That's cool if you got the money like that. But if you don't have the money like that, it could be expensive. The next thing you want to do is make sure that the structure is tight. And that's where you probably need an inspector if you don't know what you're doing to make sure that the building isn't leaning or you got foundation issues like cracks in the foundation because now you're going to start getting water when it rains. So you want to make sure that the foundation is good. And then, you want to check for termites. Termites, especially on a wood property, can really be a problem. It could cost you a lot of money. And then you want to check to see if they have like a sump pump in the basement or several sump pumps in the basement. Now, that's an indication that you might have a water problem. And all you have to do, really, if they didn't paint it, is look around the walls. If you see water stains, then you know you're getting water, or they got water at one time. So you may want to look into that. The next thing you want to do is check to see if the outside of the property is secure with fencing. Fencing is very important. It keeps people honest. So you want to make sure that your fencing is good because, a good fence make a good neighbor. So you want to make sure, and it keep the burglars and the bad guys out. So you want to make sure you got fencing. I had that problem where I didn't have the proper gates and came to the property and the door was kicked in and they had pipe wrenches laying all over the place. So you want to make sure your property is secure and you want to make sure that you got a good gate. You want to make sure that the garage is just as good as the house because if the garage is shot, that can be anywhere from $5,000 to $10,000, depending on what the problem is. If it's a roof issue, wall issues, whatever, that can be expensive. And another thing you want to check that a lot of people really don't check is the entry doors. Are the entry doors all rotted out and you need to replace your entry doors? But that can cost probably, if you don't know what you're doing, probably cost you anywhere from $700 to $1,000 per door because they're gonna put in a new door, they're gonna frame it, blah blah blah. So that can. I know one person she spent close to $10,000. No, was it? It was. I think it was. I think it was $5,000, if I'm not mistaken. But it was a really nice door. But she spent about $5,000. The next thing you want to do is get you want to get prepared for your closing, and by that I mean you got to make sure your attorney will do all of this. They'll check to make sure the property's got a clear title. Because you don't want to get something that doesn't have a clear title. That could be a problem for you. You want to make sure that the property don't have any violations on it from the city. You want to make sure that you don't have any liens on the property uh, by other vendors or anybody. Your attorney will check that. And then you'll probably need to get a survey. So this way you can confirm your border lines if you don't have a fence. You at least you'll know your border, and it's good to have a survey. Then they'll probably ask you to put down anywhere from 6 months to a year worth of insurance on the property, and you got to come out of pocket with that. And your bank will probably want you that's gonna lend you the money for the property, gonna ask for financials. So you'll probably need a lot of bank statements, W-2s, anything that you got that's dealing with income, other rental properties, information, blah, blah, blah. You're gonna need all that, and that's a pain in the you know what. But it's time consuming, so it's good to have all that in order before you even go see a banker because they will ask you for all that stuff. And the quicker you do it, the sooner you can close. The next thing you want to do is stay on top of the person that's doing your closing, just handling all your paperwork at the bank. Because, I've had that problem where you think they're working on it, they're really not working on it. They working on somebody else's stuff and your stuff just sitting on their desk. So you don't want to lose out like that because if that contract expires, that owner can walk away with whatever money you put down on. So it's very important that you make sure that they are working on your stuff. You call them every day or every other day, but don't just say, okay, they handle it. Because I did that with a property and the lady wasn't even working on it. So you want to make sure that they're handling your business. So, okay, so let's say you get past all of that stuff, right? So the next thing, you got a closing date. Congratulations. Now you're at the finish line. So you go to your closing, you sign all these documents. They want you to put down 20% if you ever owned a property prior to you buying this one. So let's say the property is $100,000. I'm just using numbers now so you get an idea what I'm talking about. So it's $100,000. So that means you got to put down 20%, which is $20,000. So now you're putting down $20,000. Now, if you never bought a property, you probably can go through FHA or something like that and put down only like 3% down, but you got to live there. And then you got to ask yourself, do you want to live with your tenants? Now, I've done that too, and I'll tell you, it's better for you to live somewhere else and your tenants stay there by themselves. And then you got to ask yourself, if whatever type of property you're purchasing, is it a house or is it a multi-unit? I would probably prefer a multi-unit because this way, if one tenant stop paying and they don't go in cahoots with each other on you, then you still got income coming in just in case you got to put one out. So I would probably do that. If you get a house, then that's 100% of your income. And that means that once you have to put someone out or they decide to move and you got to redecorate the place, now it's 100% of your income. So that's something to consider. Okay, so now that you did all of that, your clothing went good, they hand you the keys, congratulations. Now it's finna get real. So now you got to go over there. This is your property. Now, it ain't the other person's property. This is your property. So you want to make sure before you do anything else, go over there, make sure you change those locks and secure your place. Put timers, your lights on timers, change the locks, secure the gates. Me personally, I put alarm on it. I started doing that. You can go through like Simply Safe or something like that. And this way, you could take that alarm with you when you rent it out if you want to. But at least you got it there while you're fixing it up because people are watching that property. And people ask me all the time, should they buy a property and live like 20 miles out? No. That property should be no more than 5 to 10 miles from where you live. And I would probably say at least 5, in my case, 5 miles from where you live, because if you live in a climate where it snows or what have you, you got to be able to go over there and deal with that. Or if you get an emergency, if you live 20, 30 miles out, you're not feeling that. You're not trying to go over there and do anything because it's too far out. So you want to live close to your property. And then I hear people asking me, well, I just get a management company. Well, management company for one small house or 2 flat, you won't make any money because all the money be going to them and they still won't do a good job. And then if you've heard, are you going to cut the grass, shovel the snow? So you don't want to be too far out to do that. And then that costs money as well to pay somebody else to do that. The next thing is you want to advertise to get you a tenant, okay? Now, you don't just put anybody in. You're going to have people come to you with sad stories. You're going to have people cry to you. You're going to have people going to come to you with all their belongings with them. You just don't do it. You play by the rules. Dude, I've done all that, got burned big time, lost so much money doing business with my heart. So don't do business with your heart. So you want to do a background check. And by me saying a background check, you want to check for past evictions. If they got 1, 5, you want to know this. You want to do criminal nowadays. You can't just do credit. You want to do criminal. And if they got a child over 18, you want to do a background check on them, credit check on them. The kids, if they got kids, you want to make sure they're in school, they're doing something with themselves, opposed to just running the streets or hanging out with a lot of friends. You want to make sure that that person got enough income to handle your place. You want to do all these things. And lastly, You want to even go over to where they live now, you know, and you want to look to see if the utilities is in that person's name. You want a reference from the landlord. You want you want to make sure that they're in good standings, and you want to see how they keeping their house now, and you want to go over uninvited. And you tell them you're going over uninvited. So this way, um, you know how they keep their house. The next thing you want to look at when you're interviewing a tenant, you want to look at their mannerism. You want to not take anyone that's not in a house already. You know, that could be red flags. Red flags if they got multiple evictions, that could be a problem for you. I know it was a problem for me. And it can be very costly when you put somebody in eviction court. The cost to put them in court, going back and forth, lost rents, the money it's going to take you to put the place back together again. And, you know, if they go get them a pro bono attorney, now you got to get an attorney, and it's just a mess. You know, you can be talking anywhere from 6 months to a year. And with this pandemic, it's 2 years. So, you know, how much money do you have set aside for all of this? You know, you have to make sure that you handling your business, because you will lose that place over a tenant if you don't do what you need to do. Okay. Your lease agreement. You want to talk about everything you need to talk about. You know, if it's a single family house, generally you want the tenant to cut the grass, or you hire somebody to cut the grass and do the snow if you live in a climate where it's snow. And then you just charge the tenant accordingly. But most tenants want to cut the grass and clean up around the place themselves. And that's good. I had a tenant that did that, and he did an excellent job. Planted flowers. You know, he just treated the place like it was his own. So that's what you want. You want to make sure that you have an understanding, and you want to make sure that you don't live too far out, like I say, from your property, because tenants generally will move other tenants in if they know you're not around. So you want to make sure you're around, you know, go by your property, drive by, you know. And then every 6 months, you should do some type of inspection on your property to make sure that it's still intact, and, you know, it's not falling apart, and you don't have people living there that shouldn't be living there. And you want to exterminate your property. Never leave it up to the tenant to spray. They're going to tell you, oh, I can do that. And you go by there, it's going to be a place full of roaches and everything else. So, you know, if you don't want to do it, hire an exterminator and charge them accordingly. Lost rents. Lost rents, you can lose your shirt, because if people ain't paying rent and you just a regular person out there trying to make a living off rental property, well, you can be in a lot of trouble if the tenant stop paying and you don't have any backup plan. So, you know, make sure you have that in order too, because all in rental properties, you're going to be spending a lot of money. You're going to be spending money coming out the gate. You will be spending money. So you want to make sure that, you don't just throw anybody in there and say, have at it. Because once they're in there, like the judges used to tell me, they your problem now. See? Ain't nobody gonna feel sorry for you. Nobody. And then that's your problem. I've been in some of the worst neighborhoods to some nice neighborhoods. And I'll tell you, it's a lonely feeling when you're trying to do this by yourself. So take your time and put the right person in. Even if you're going to lose a little money, it's better to put the right person than the wrong person. You know, because if you got a 2 flat or 4 flat or whatever you got, one bad apple can ruin the bunch, and your good tenants will move out, and you'll be stuck with that bad tenant. So make sure that you say everything you want. You don't want no pests. You don't want no drinking around the building. You don't want no hanging out around the building, and mean it. Because if you don't mean it, then people will look at you like as though you're a joke, and then it's just gonna get out of hand. So that's all I have on the real estate thing. I'm not trying to talk you into it. I'm not trying to talk you out of it. What I am telling you is what's involved with, and it's way more than this, because you're gonna need like an accountant to do your taxes and all that. But you'll figure all that out, and it's just and basically, you'll be doing this. Each time a tenant move out, it generally costs you about almost $1,000 just to put it back together, for the next person. So your money kind of evens out if they stay anywhere from 2 to 3 years. But one bed tenant not paying can cost you everything. So think about that. I know we think about we gonna have tenants and we gonna be living good and life is good and money coming in and no worries. No, it's a lot of worries when you are a landlord. It's a lot of sleepless nights. Unless you get that gym, then you'll be okay. But to do that, you have to be patient. You just can't put anybody in, and then you got to thoroughly do the background check. And if you got grown kids, each one of them should be doing their own application with you. So that's all I have. Again, this is Kay, the blue collar worker, back at it with another video. Press like if you like my video, subscribe if you want to, and I'll see you in my next video. Thank you guys. Take care. Have a great day.